You're missing a great sight, Lee.
All right, and I've opened it up so that anyone else that comes in will just come straight into the meeting with their audio automatically off. Of course, when we have public comment, we'll allow their audio at that time. And we'll act like that's an alarm. So I will call this meeting to order. And I did not grab a flag for Gerald to specifically hold. But if you face in the direction of the flag, or if you have a flag that you are able to do the Pledge of Allegiance, um, please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. And working session like we've had before. So it's the same type of schedule, and that we'll have a public comment section, and then we'll have the board discussion over the marijuana ordinance. We'll have another public comment before the adjournment. And for this first public comment, if people would kindly keep it to an approximate 3-minute time limit if they want to say anything. I will open that up so that if you want to indicate by the raising your hand feature or anything else, physically raising the hand in your video, or if that is not working for you, chat, I want to make sure that I don't miss anyone that wants to speak. So if you would like to make public comment, please make that known at this time. All right, seeing no indication of anyone wanting to make public comment, we will move on to the board discussion. So just like our working session before, obviously a little bit different through this format on Zoom, but we do want to make sure that everyone has a chance to say what they want. So we'll try to work our way through the entire board before we go back to board members. We do have Lorraine, our zoning administrator, here if anyone wants to ask questions that could pertain to what she knows. And Chief Alan Stiles is also on the call in case anyone had specific questions for him. They are available. But what we are discussing is this few page ordinance, the ordinance 2020-03, an ordinance to amend the zoning, the township zoning ordinance for marijuana facilities, and obviously has several parts. So if anyone wants to start us off, does anyone have anything they would like to say?
I would like to add that, I looked up to see how many marijuana shops were close to our area. And actually, it only listed 5 on the websites. However, there's one right at River Road, right off the get-go. There's 2 of them in Whitehall. And short of us just making a money grab to allow marijuana to be freely sold here in Dalton Township, I personally feel it is a gateway drug. I know that it's legalized, but that doesn't mean that I want to make it easy for people to obtain this so close to my neighborhood. Me personally, I came from that background, and I know that you're not going to get off site before you start, because that's just the reality of a user. So that's pretty much what I wanted to say about it.
And I myself, I spoke with a couple of commissioners last week, and actually one of them, Doug Brown, actually mentioned that we're oversaturated right now. It's just so much going on right now, just in the county of Muskegon. It's almost everywhere, and by attracting this into our community, what other business is that going to attract? And also, one of my other concerns is litigation. If we're bringing this money in, are we actually be making enough to combat any litigation that could come up in the future? And that's a big downgrade right there for me.
Yep.
I don't think that our community needs this type of business with us. We need something that's going to be more beneficial for the community. Sticking more drugs out there is not a good answer, I don't think. I think it's something that is not going to be at all beneficial. I don't see an upside for this.
Excellent. Thank you. Anyone else from the board?
Tap your screen.
Sorry, we're in the same room, so I think we have some back. Can you turn that off? I understand that a small township wants to bring in money and revenue. That completely makes a lot of sense. But the Dalton Township residents that I've talked to recently have said they want restaurants. They want things to do with their families. And the other thing that other people have talked about in other counties, we've been talking around about it, and that is we open ourselves up to being sued. There are several other counties that have got, like he was talking about with the litigation, and I'm concerned that, I don't know what the revenue would be for 6 dispensaries if there ended up being that many, if this passed. And let's just say it's $100,000, just a rough estimate over the course of how many years. If it ends up costing us that much or more with future court cases, is it really worth the headache? So that's where I'm at.
Good. Lori, Lee, or Gerald?
It's a catch-22. Because I can tell you right now, not one of you on this whole board can sit there and tell me you don't take a prescription.
No, I don't. I do not. Not one.
I don't either.
And there are a lot of benefits to it. And it's just a fact of being responsible and being responsible adults. That's all there is to it. I don't smoke weed myself, but I do hemp. And it controls my migraines like no other. You can roll your eyes somewhere else, Nola. You're not gonna.
My brain is thinking. I'm thinking about what you're stating about the benefits of smoking marijuana. You're actually hurting your lungs. If you are taking it as CBD oil, that's completely different. That's beneficial. But there are so many strains of marijuana out there that are so powerful and so potent. I'm not over here rolling my eyes, Gerald, and for you to assume that is wrong completely. My brain is thinking. I look away when I'm thinking because I don't want to be distracted. So please don't make assumptions on me, please.
You finished?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
There are a lot of benefits to it. Because I'm just a mere 36 years old and I'm popping pills like a freaking 80-year-old. I got to have a little fucking plastic thingy that I have to put all my dang prescriptions in. And I do hemp that controls my migraines that nobody can figure out what the heck is causing them. I go home days on end with migraines. I smoke a hemp cigarette, done. No more migraine. I don't have to worry about all these freaking big pharma pills that are getting pushed down my throat.
Lee or Lori, if you have a comment, and we'll come back around through the board.
Okay, so I'm going to give you my comment, not my personal opinion. The reason that this ordinance was originally put even out there was because when the motion or this was put on the ballot, almost 65, I'm going to say about 65% of the residents in Dalton Township voted for it. So that's the only reason why it was ever brought up to have provisioning centers in the township. Flat out, straight up, that's it. My personal opinion is I could care less either way, because if we do it, it's more work for me. It's more work for the township. I mean, you just can't tell people, oh, hey, we're going to open up. You can open up a provisioning center. There are rules, there are regulations that they have to follow and we have to follow. And it's a lot of work. But like I said, the only reason this ever came up was because Dalton Town, the majority, not a big majority, but a majority of Dalton Township residents said they wanted it. That's why. So, you know, benefits, I'm no doctor. I know people that use hemp, that use marijuana, because it does help. I mean, cancer, people with cancer, people with chronic pain, no doubt about it. I'm just telling you, the only reason it's here and it's only reason it's before you now is because the majority of residents voted yes when it was on the ballot. There's my spiel. I'm going to shut up now.
I appreciate the comments. Lee, do you have anything?
I guess, I mean, I'm on kind of the same thing as Lori a little bit. Like, I'm impartial to either way it goes. I do understand there are benefits. I mean, there's multiple ways to take it, as in like the oils and the edibles and stuff. We actually use it on some of our animals here at the farm. I mean, I don't know much about it because I've never done it, that kind of thing. I mean, like I know there's the comment of the gateway drug, this and that. I don't know. I haven't been really a part of that culture, so I can't say that affirmatively that's yes or no. But I don't know. I'm like Lori says too. I guess if it's going to create, or Renee was saying as well. I mean, is there going to be any kind of litigation, that kind of stuff? Because it is still, I'm not 100% sure. Is it still federally illegal? So I don't know how that all works against the state stuff and things like that. I mean, I guess if it's going to create a headache, I'd rather not. But at the same time, I mean, like Gerald says, people use it to help themselves without taking prescription drugs, which are way more powerful and way, in my mind, from what I've seen, are way more addictive than marijuana, anything like that. So I guess that's my 2 cents. I'm really impartial. I mean, I can go either way. But I don't know. It's kind of hard to say because I can see both sides. I can see, you don't want to bring more things into the fray for people to be able to use, but at the same time, it helps a lot of people at the same time. So I don't know. That's my 2 cents, I guess.
No, I appreciate it, Lee. So there's a bunch of stuff with this, of course, not a simple subject.
Yeah.
About the lawsuit aspect. So there have been various lawsuits over these in other municipalities. I've definitely heard that. So in this one that's been drawn up was done with the lawyer. He came to multiple meetings with the township, the board before, and the planning commission. And it seems pretty solid from that angle. I know that a number of the lawsuits before were basically on who was getting the license at the time, and like if it's first come, first serve, in that type of thing. So I haven't heard about the lawsuits on just allowing it versus not allowing it. There's been more of a debate on the process for actually getting the license. And that looks pretty solid in there. I know it was gone over a number of times. So I think it seems pretty decent there. It is, I believe it still is, a Schedule I drug at the federal level. But we also have the 9th Amendment, which is state rights, and the states put it in. And obviously there was a decent amount of support in the township itself, which I like local rights, of course. The idea of prohibiting it completely, I think is a major issue in whether the government should be choosing to do that or whether the people privately should be choosing to do it. Because I think in the 1920s, the idea of prohibition was a very strong lesson in a very bad way for the country. And I think that's a decent lesson for us to take into consideration. I don't particularly like it, although I know a lot of people that are into it, and I have chronic pain issues and I manage them through meditation. But arguing against it, I think, should be done more in the private sphere as persuasion rather than implemented through the force of government, I think would be ideal. And to a large extent, we wouldn't then be limiting the use so much as just the business in the township, since you can go to a bunch of different places and still use it, even legally. You can do it illegally, of course, but you can do it legally in a bunch of neighboring areas. So in the end, by limiting it, we're not even limiting the use, we're just limiting the business. And if I had to go after a drug, I would go after prescription benzodiazepines, which I'm also not going to take out a campaign against those. But if I was going to choose something, I would consider those much more dangerous personally. Yeah, on this round, I guess that's all I have to say. And we can go through the board again. I know there are other people that want to make comments again, because it is a complex subject, that's for sure.
Well, I'd also like to point out, you keep bringing up the prohibition in the 1920s. Last I checked, it's here in Michigan, or like I said, I can drive 5 minutes any direction. I can go get it. So the question here is, do we want that here in our community, in our little township here? Do we think that that's the kind of business we want to see here? This isn't a prohibition thing, because like I said, I can go 5 minutes any direction and I can get it. Okay. This is more going to be a headache in the end, I think. That's my opinion. Now, I want public feedback, of course, because that's, like you said, this is a public thing. But unfortunately, this has found our way. We inherited this issue. This could have been taken care of last year, but it wasn't. So now we're inheriting this issue, and we have not heard anything from the public. Yes, no. I mean, I've talked to a few of the neighbors around here. In fact, I just had a communication out in the driveway today. One of the people driving by, and they said, "Hey, that marijuana thing, we don't want it here." They're worried about the litigation aspects. Worried about everything I brought up. That's why I brought it up, because people have spoke to me about it.
Good. Other comment from the board? You don't have your sound on, Nola. I can see you're talking. Oh, let me ask you to unmute it just a second.
Thank you. I agree. You can go, it's in Whitehall, 2 different places in Whitehall. There's one right at River Road. They're in Muskegon. There are places that you can go to get it. And, I understand that it does help certain people, but the majority of people it's recreational, but then it turns into something more deeper. I am fully aware of people with cancer, with the profession that I have, helping people. But again, I have seen where the oils are way more effective and the edibles are way more effective than just smoking marijuana. And I know where I've come from. I know where I've come from. And I have a very dear friend that unfortunately opened that door started off with some beer, then it went to cigarettes, then it went to marijuana, and next thing you know, cocaine addiction that has consumed the person's life for the last 2 years. So I'm not saying don't do it, but I don't know that me personally, I would want this to be that easily accessible in my community, in my region. That's pretty much my stance.
Thank you. Yeah, Renee, if you want to go.
One of the other things that someone brought up to me was that when they did vote for it, because Lori brought up the 65%, And that's what we're here for. I mean, we're trustees, we're for the people, we the people, and we want to be able to represent the people that we live with, that we live in our community, that live in our community. So one of the things they brought up was that they thought they were voting no, but the wording that was on the ballot was misleading. So I understand 65%, that's that's more than 50. So that's a big number. But did every person that was voting realize what they were voting for? So I don't remember now because it's been a while. So I don't remember what the exact wording was for that on the ballot. But that was one of the things one of my friends brought up that lives in Dalton, that they were very confused about the way that it was worded. So I just wanted to make note of that. I understand that there's benefits to it. I have family members that that have it and use it. I don't personally, but that doesn't matter. It's not about me. It's about our community, and that's what it boils down to. And the pros and the cons to me just outweigh. That's where I'm at.
Gerald, Lee, or Lori?
I already said most of my piece. The only thing I'd say is, if you don't understand what you're reading, study it. You're more than welcome to come and get a ballot that's voided out and go home and study it. You laugh, but you can come into the township and get a voided out ballot, go home and read what's on.
Take my word for it, he's right. I guess my question to the board is then, because from what I'm hearing from you is, the people you have talked to don't want it. Great. So where do we go? Do we have a public meeting and have everybody come? I see how public we've got here now, but have everybody come and voice their opinion? I mean, if there are people out there that voted yes and they really meant no, I mean, then we need to know that, because if I go based on those numbers, the majority of the community wanted the provisioning centers, and that's why this ordinance was put out there in the first place. So maybe, I don't know, I just think we need to make sure we do what the public wants. We need to make sure we know what they want before we make a decision then. Yes, I see your hand, Lorraine. I'll shut up.
I didn't want you to shut up. I just have a comment. We had a public meeting when we had the ordinance required a public hearing, and we didn't really have much public there at all. We had one person that lives in Holton against it, but we really didn't have much public input, and it was advertised.
And Lee, do you have anything?
I guess not really anything further than what I kind of said before. I do want to do, we need to do what the public, wanted, but like Lori was saying, I mean, is that an accurate measurement of what the township wants? But I mean, it doesn't matter to me. Yes, we do it, or no, we don't. It doesn't really affect me personally, but like we said, like Renee said too, it's not personal, it's about the township. So
Yeah, I think that's a very reasonable take. And the fact that those types of meetings have happened with not too much input would seem to me to indicate that a lot of people fall into the category that like Lee and Lori have kind of indicated of they're fine either way. And it might be that. It also might be that the township is decently split, and the board might represent that split, which I don't think there's any problem with that. That's why we have a board. Otherwise, we could just have one person. And so that's the purpose of the board itself. What I would be curious in hearing from the board also is the difference, because there's 3 and 3, right? So I was just talking to someone today that was in the office, and the subject came up, and his reaction was, "Wow, that seems like a lot, right? Six for a small township, and like a medium township. Would it make sense? It'd be fairly easy to change. Would it make sense to have 2 and 2 instead of having possibility of 6 provisioning centers? You could have 4. That way, there's less competition with other businesses. I don't think the township should really be determining exactly which business would go where and who should be competing with what, but nevertheless, that would do it. And it makes sense to start on a smaller level. That way, in case things are more complex, more complicated, or there's problems, it's limited in some way, which I know is why they limited it to 3 and 3 just on 120 and just Whitehall now, but that could be limited more. So I'd be interested to hear any takes on that. Yeah, Karen.
I think even one on Whitehall, one on 120. Like you said, we could always add on later. I mean, let's see what happens. You know, I can see that, and it's a compromise. But yeah, 6, that's definitely oversaturating the market over here, I think. So 1 and 1, 2 and 2, whatever we can come up with. But again, I want to hear more from the public. You know, this is about their community. You know, they're the reason why we're here. You know, maybe Renee's thinking maybe a Facebook poll or something, or I don't know. But there's got to be something that we can get, or something that we can do. Maybe mail it to the people and have people mail it back. I know it's cost more money. Yeah, that's true. So I don't know. I'm just trying to brainstorm here, but there's got to be some way so we can gauge this better.
Well, I understand what you're saying, but you have to understand that when you start dropping those numbers down, that's when you start getting into the position where we're going to start having problems with people saying we're not allowing everybody to do it. How are we going to make sure that, I mean, we figured 3 and 3 was based on the phone calls I'm getting, we would fill those 6 right now, because people have been calling me for months and months and months wanting to know, are we going to allow provisioning centers? They're ready to move. And when you drop numbers down, then it becomes then we have to be very, very careful to make sure that we get the right people. Like, how are we going to do it? Are we going to have them apply? Is it first come, first serve? Is it only one license per person? I mean, and I hate to say it, talk to Muskegon Township. Boy, they're still in litigation over when they first opened up their licensing for the provisioning centers, because someone filed suit saying that one person got in front of them and they shouldn't have. And I'm just going to be devil's advocate about this, because when you start limiting, then you're going to have people calling into question your practices, and that's where the litigation is going to come in. That's my only take on that. Like I said, I don't care either way, but I've seen it with other municipalities already, and I don't want to see that for us to end up in litigation.
Thank you. Any other board members?
I guess, like she was saying, it does say in the ordinance that's written up, it is a first come, first served basis. Is that how most people are doing it, or could we do it by a application and then pick from them?
Well, they do have to go the way from what we've gotten that Lorraine has worked with the attorney on. They do have to file an application.
Okay.
And they do have to meet certain criteria. One of the biggest criteria is they have to be certified by the state of Michigan to have a provisioning center, which means they have to go through all the rigmarole with the state of Michigan first.
Okay.
But I know that when it first came out, there was, well, you can ask some of the people at Muskegon Township. They had people camping in front of that place for 10 days waiting to get in there and get their permits. And when I can't remember which person it was, but they were just outside the number that were allowed, and they immediately filed a lawsuit saying that Muskegon didn't fairly vet their applicants, or however they worded it. I haven't actually seen the litigation itself, but, and they are, Muskegon Township has, so far, they've come out right, but they're still in litigation. I mean, you still have to pay the attorneys. Even if you're right, you still have to pay the attorneys for this. So, but we do, I think the process that we have in place will work. But like I said, there's always going to be that chance. And as a board, you need to know that. I mean, we can do everything right, and someone can still file a lawsuit, and we can still end up in court. Even if we're right, even if we're doing it right. So that's where we are.
It sounds like a Pandora's box.
Sometimes it feels like it, let me tell you.
I bet you're probably the one of all of us that knows that best.
Well, yeah, because everything comes through the clerk's office. They have to file their applications with the clerk's office. The clerk's office basically determines if they've done everything they're supposed to do and if we're going to allow them to have the license. And yeah, so Lorraine has helped me, but we've done a lot of reading on this.
I think it's true that it is a bit of a Pandora's box, but largely everything the township touches is a Pandora's box. And all of these business interactions are quite complex. So wading through them is kind of kind of the job. Under this ordinance that has been and gone through and is the proposed one here, there is one sentence that I think helps a lot with this. It's priority for the number of permitted locations shall, if necessary, be based upon the issue date of the state license, which means that they do, like Lori was saying, have to have the state license in place and have gone through that process. So they are serious and they have some paperwork in order, and that makes a clear-cut piece of paper issued by the state, which is a nice, strong third party for verifying which one should go first. Any other board comments?
Is there a way to do some kind of a Facebook poll? Ideas? I mean, if people aren't coming to the meetings and, how do we find out? I mean, I understand that there was a ballot. I understand all that. But now it's been a couple of years, from what I gathered. So just kind of wondering, how else do we make decisions?
That thing can definitely be done personally. I mean, I know everyone has a Facebook, and there's a bunch of Facebook groups about a bunch of different things, and some of them are specifically focused on Dalton. And so it can definitely be done in that way. I'm not sure if that can be done as an official township outlet, because it wouldn't be official feedback like a vote is a very official political thing, and we definitely couldn't rely on those types of numbers as strongly as the numbers of the vote. Any other board comments? Lorraine.
Is the board okay with the other sections, like the section for growers and compliance facilities and transporters?
Yes.
Okay.
It seems like the provisioning centers are the key feature of controversy, at least.
Okay.
Any other board comment before we move on to public comment? Last call. Yeah. Seeing none, I'm going to move it on to our second public comment section. So if any public has a comment to make, please indicate that by either hitting your hand signal, physically raising your hand in your video, putting out a chat, something like that. All right, and I see we have one hand raised. Tony Barnes, I'm going to unmute you.
Hey, how's everybody doing tonight? Hey, I know you guys feel that you inherited a mess, but you know, the state kept moving the goalpost on us. So we had to wait until they figured out where we could potentially score at. It was a little frustrating for not just Dalton, but for all 1,300 townships in the state. Muskegon Township is not in a lawsuit anymore, and it had nothing to do with the person being in the 11th position. It all had to do with somebody arguing who was in first position. All the litigation's over. They've ironed it all out. It's working fine in Muskegon Township. Your voters already spoke. It is passing all 4 precincts. I would just recommend you go with what the voters wanted. I mean, very inaccurate polling on social media, I don't think is going to overdo what the voters have already said. The only reason we held back, and you could talk to any of the former members, was simply because the state kept moving the goalpost. And yeah, I met plenty of people who said they didn't want it. Plenty of them, obviously. And I think all of us have. But the voters spoke. And, you know, you talk to any of the businesses around here, they're like, you know, people come to pick up whatever they need to at a provisioning center. They're going to maybe stop at the gas station. They're maybe going to go out eventually at some point to dinner. So, you know, I don't know if you're taking into consideration the fact that a big portion of our township's agricultural, and that's already, I mean, they can already grow it in all over the agricultural district. So I'm not sure why we would be limiting how people can go get it, whether it's in our township or not. I mean, I heard a comment that they got them in Whitehall. Yeah, they do. But if you go right to the corner of River Road and Holton Whitehall, there's one right there in the southwest corner, which is Muskegon Township. So there has been no adverse issues arise because of that provisioning center being right across the street from Dalton Township. So to think that we would miraculously have incidents because we did it in Dalton is a little bit far-fetched. The residents spoke. That was the most official tally you're going to get, but I wish you guys luck. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other public comment, if you want to indicate by the signal of the hand or raising your hand? Last call for public comment. I see no indication of any public comment. So I will declare this meeting adjourned. I appreciate everyone's time who spoke, and definitely a complex issue. And I think we definitely heard some good opinions in both directions. I wish you all a good night.
Night, everybody.
Yep.
I really hope they do speak.